Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Monday, May 10th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about the 2021 Virginia gubernatorial election that's set to occur on November 2nd, 2021. Now, this is an election that is going to determine who controls the governorship in the state of Virginia and whether or not the Democratic Party will continue their trifecta within the state government. Right now, they hold both chambers within the state legislature. In addition, they hold the governor's mansion. Now, they've held the governor's mansion since 2013, and tonight we know officially, well, not necessarily certified, but we have a very good understanding and a very clear depiction of who the GOP nominee is going to be come this November. And that is Glenn Youngkin. This is a little-known candidate, someone who wasn't even viewed as the frontrunner or the top vote getter for the longest time, only did well in recent convention polling data, hasn't necessarily done as well in the primary polling data, and there is a difference. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But we now know, based off of this ranked choice voting situation, that Glenn Youngkin will be the nominee for the Republican Party come this November. And this comes as a result of Amanda Chase, the Trump-like candidate, someone who ran on a campaign to make Virginia great again, now being eliminated through the primary convention process. And in order for Glenn Youngkin to be overcome, he would actually need to receive barely any of her votes, which isn't necessarily a reality. At the end of the day, we have a general idea of who the next Republican nominee for governor in Virginia is going to be, and that begs the question, will this Virginia GOP nominee have a realistic chance at victory? Well, today, Dave Wasserman, a very well-known political pundit, especially on Twitter, someone who I respect very heavily, says that he believes that the Republicans actually have a good chance to win the governor's race this year. Now, as you can expect, this tweet went up in flames. We saw a lot of backlash from people that were saying that this was an invalid claim or something that shouldn't be argued. But I actually do agree. The reason why I wanted to make this video is because we know who the GOP nominee is going to be, and I wanted to address the very real reality that the GOP actually might luck out in this Virginia governor election because of who they nominated. I mean, in the beginning of my analysis videos, it looked as if that Amanda Chase, the Trump-like candidate, was going to actually win the nomination. She was someone who had been completely full President Trump mode the entire time of her campaigning. I mean, when it comes down to her slogan, her advertising, her website, everything replicated President Trump. And she was on track to victory until the GOP in Virginia took that away from her. What do I mean by that? Well, in the polling data amongst the primary, Amanda Chase led in every single poll, dating all the way back to February. So from January 31st through May 6th, amongst primary voters, or just Republicans in the state, Amanda Chase led. But the Republican Party opted out of a primary and instead opted into a convention system, which meant that people would have to drive up to places and would have to register themselves as delegates rather than just going out and voting at a regular polling place. This limited the entire selection process to just around 10,000 people rather than tens of thousands of people. But again, that was the GOP's decision, but it was very clear what they were trying to do. And the polling data also tells you the exact same story. Amanda Chase goes from leading, and then the convention polling data right up before the convention shows Glenn Youngkin with an overwhelming lead over Amanda Chase, Kurt Cox, and Pete Snyder. I just think it's very interesting. Now, the polling data was moderately correct. It did predict the final two candidates correctly, Pete Snyder and Glenn Youngkin, and then it had Amanda Chase and Kurt Cox tied. Now, they weren't exactly tied. Amanda Chase did do a little bit better, but she was ultimately eliminated. She was removed from the primary process, and now the GOP is at a position where Glenn Youngkin, the soon-to-be GOP nominee for Virginia, actually is a little bit more moderate in tone and less Trumpy than Amanda Chase was. And I know that the GOP, really, you don't really expect anyone to win without being vehemently President Trump's supporter or someone who has been with him the entire time. That was what Amanda Chase's campaign was built on, and it would have worked had it been a primary. But because of this convention, Glenn Youngkin was able to move around the system and win an election in which he otherwise might not have won in. And that's the harsh reality for Amanda Chase and the other Republicans who ran. But it's honestly a good reality for them. Out of all of the candidates here, he's probably one of the better ones for the GOP. Realistically speaking, the GOP with him as a nominee could technically win the governorship. But there are two major things that might prevent that altogether. Number one is just the partisan lean of Virginia. You cannot deny that Virginia is a state that would be deemed a Democratic state. It is not necessarily a swing state. Texas is more of a swing state than Virginia. New Hampshire is more of a swing state than Virginia. Minnesota is more of a swing state than Virginia. Iowa, Ohio, more of a swing state than Virginia. Virginia itself is a state that has now gone towards Joe Biden for the largest margin for a Democrat since 1944. The first time they've hit double digits since 1944 under President FDR. So Joe Biden certainly had a very resounding victory in this state, an improvement significant at that compared to Hillary Clinton. But this doesn't necessarily mean that the state is safe blue. It may be a large margin, but given the right circumstances, the GOP might actually have a pathway to victory. And I know it doesn't really make sense. But based off who the eventual nominees are going to be on the Virginia governor's race, we know Glenn Youngkin is likely to be this GOP nominee after tonight's results. In addition, Terry McAuliffe has been leading in almost every single poll that has been taken, actually leading in every single one. Why? Because he actually served as governor from the state of Virginia. That's right. He was in the governor's mansion before, and if you're wondering, oh, why didn't he run for re-election? Virginia law prohibits him from doing so. Virginia says that you can run for one term and then you can't run again, and then you can run later on. Essentially, you can't run for re-election, but you can run for re-election, just not consecutively. There. I put it out the way that I wanted to. So Terry McAuliffe is back for more. He's back to become the governor of the state of Virginia yet again, and he seems to be squashing all of his opponents. Justin Fairfax is literally the lieutenant governor of the state of Virginia, and he's polling sometimes single digits against Terry McAuliffe. Jennifer Carroll Foy, one of the first people to announce that she was running for governor, one of the more progressive candidates along with Lee Carter and Jennifer McClellan, none of them poll above single digits in a single poll. Terry McAuliffe at a low point is at 26%, which is higher than any of the candidates have ever reached in a primary poll in the state of Virginia. And the primary is on June 8th. There's not much time to change around this process to overcome Terry McAuliffe. It seems as if his name recognition will be enough to land him a position as the Democratic nominee. And if you look at the endorsements that he's received so many endorsements from state delegates, from Ralph Northam, the incumbent governor of Virginia. I mean, it's interesting that Northam is backing Terry McAuliffe when Justin Fairfax, the lieutenant governor of Virginia, is running against Terry McAuliffe. So instead of backing the lieutenant governor, the incumbent governor is instead backing Terry McAuliffe. Nancy Pelosi is backing Terry McAuliffe. You have people that are in the state senators, state delegates, local officials, labor unions, the Washington Post, the people that have an impact and have name recognition or some type of weight in certain regions of the state, Northern Virginia, Southern Virginia, whatever it might be, Reston area, whatever. Terry McAuliffe is getting a lot of their endorsements and a lot of support across the entire state. So we are looking at an election between Terry McAuliffe and Glenn Youngkin, and I think that will be probably one of the closer elections. Had Amanda Chase been in this position, she would have been squashed. Had Kurt Cox been in this situation, he probably would have been squashed as well. Looking at the people on the candidate list, those who have qualified for the convention, I honestly think that the Glenn Youngkin candidate was the strongest one out of the bunch, but not enough to say that he would outright win. I think it is true that they have a good chance to win, but a good chance for the GOP in Virginia means 30%. That doesn't mean 70, 80%. A good chance to win in Florida would mean 70 to 80%, but a good chance to win in Virginia means a little bit different. Because of the recent election results, Republicans shouldn't be overly confident about their chances. In 2017, they were defeated by 8 points statewide. Well, you can understand that. Donald Trump was the president. He was at a very unpopular point of his presidency. At this point, one of the lowest points in his entire presidency, right up until the Capitol insurrection. So they lost by 8. The Republicans lost by 8. But in 2013, you might expect the results to be a little bit different. And they slightly were. Terry McAuliffe actually broke the streak that the opposition party was able to win the governorship in the state of Virginia. This time, the Democrats were able to hold on to it despite Barack Obama being reelected and being not too popular within the state of Virginia. Terry McAuliffe won by 2.5%. So he has that behind his name, and he has that going into the 2021 elections. But this margin wasn't exactly astounding. 2.5% is far from impressive for someone who wants to win in 2021 by a very large margin. Honestly speaking, the GOP doesn't have the best chance at winning the governorship like they would in other states, but it's not a 0% chance. Had it been Amanda Chase, it would have been a 0% chance. And the other thing that I mentioned that made this entire governor's race contingent on this one thing is whether or not Amanda Chase is going to run as an independent. You see, when you look at those who have floated interest in running as an independent or as a third-party candidate, you might notice that Amanda Chase is here, citing that the election was stolen. The GOP primary was stolen from her. It's interesting how the GOP has turned their own rhetoric and language against themselves. Amanda Chase has pretty much said, if the Republican Party steals the nomination from me, I will run as a third-party candidate. Well, now that she's lost, we have to see if she was bluffing or not, but if she does run as a third-party candidate or as an independent, completely count out the idea of Glenn Youngkin winning, because they need every single vote, and the only way they will get that is if Amanda Chase chooses not to run as an independent. But it's going to take a lot of convincing, assuming the fact that, she will hold true to what she said and truly believes that the election was rigged and wasn't just using this as some tactic in order to pressure or change the outcome of the results by threatening the Virginia GOP. She was eliminated fair and square through the primary, but if she doesn't believe it was fair and square, nothing can stop her from running as an independent in the governor's race in Virginia. So that single-handedly could screw over the GOP's plans at winning back the governorship in Virginia. So it would be a long time coming. The last time this happened was in 2009, and I think this is what the GOP really wants to tap into. It was right after Obama had flipped the state for the first time in decades. In addition, won by around 6 points. So 6 points. So the Republicans were looking at a victory here that would be sort of a pushback against President Obama, and they actually got that. Bob McDonnell replaced Tim Kaine, didn't defeat him because, again, you couldn't run for re-election, but was able to replace him in the governorship, winning his election by over 15 points, winning the state by a safe margin. This is what the GOP wants to happen. They want to be able to win in this state like they did in 2009. But chances are they're going to get an election close to 2013. I don't think Terry McAuliffe is going to win by the same margin as Ralph Northam. This was a scenario in which Donald Trump was a very unpopular president, and there was a lot of energy on the Virginia Democratic Party side. In 2021, I don't see the same energy. I do think that the Democrats will win, but I will not refuse to admit that the GOP has a chance. Because while the numbers don't look too promising, all it takes is the right type of year and the right type of energy on the GOP side. And, actually, I say it and it sounds easy. Obviously, it's very difficult. Otherwise, both parties would have already done that. Easier said than done. But I will say that I'm not going to 100% count out the GOP now. Based off of who they have nominated to be the GOP nominee for governor in the fall, I trust their judgment with that one because I think that was the right move. Generally speaking, I think it was the right move politically speaking. I don't know about ethically speaking by denying a lot of those people the chance to vote. But they did it in their own political interest. The Virginia GOP was smart in that movement if they wanted a realistic chance at winning the governorship, because now they have it. Because they moved out Amanda Chase, and if they can actually stop her from running as an independent, they will have one of the more stronger or the strongest potential GOP nominees as the eventual nominee. And Terry McAuliffe isn't exactly too inspiring either. The GOP would need a perfect combination of Terry McAuliffe being not so popular and not so much of a visionary as he is now. Pretty much they would need Terry McAuliffe to fall out of the favor of the public, which is why I still think right now that the Democratic Party absolutely has the advantage in Virginia, but it would not be this huge topsy-turvy upset if the GOP was able to win the governor's election. Obviously, it's not something the Democratic Party would want or would expect, but based off the circumstances, based off historically speaking, it wouldn't be far from the most realistic thing that could happen. I think the Democrats, again, I'm going to reiterate this, are in the advantage, but the GOP does have a position where they could potentially win, but it does come down to a number of factors. It's based on Biden's popularity. It's based off the partisan balance in the state, whether or not Democrats turn out in full force like they did in 2020. In addition, whether or not Youngkin is actually going to be a good candidate. If he completely takes a turn to the right, he probably won't win. If he takes a turn towards the center and tries to appease both the Trump base and the centrist base, maybe he has a better shot, but that's all up to him. And then it also comes down to whether or not Terry McAuliffe actually is a good candidate. Right now, he's leading in the Democratic primary, largely because of name recognition. How will that translate on the general election front? We don't know for sure. Chances are the Democrats will win the state of Virginia, but I don't think that it's too far to claim that the GOP has somewhat of a chance. And for the state of Virginia, I do agree with Dave Wasserman's statement that it is a good chance, but it's nothing where they are the automatic expected victory, nor are they the expected victory as it stands currently. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch and then a playlist for my 2021 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.